All right, so picking back up where we left off, letter D. Note that these are going to look a little bit different for whatever reason, but the process to solve this is still exactly the same, which is really nice. So we're going to do the same exact process, the same steps that we did yesterday, and you should be able to figure them out. All right, so remember we do have to start with putting the stuff in the correct spot. So a little bit of refresher from yesterday. We start by putting this very first thing in the top left box, so our ax squared or our 2x squared in this case. We put our negative 5x, or our middle term, in the bottom of the x, and we put that last piece, the negative 3, in the bottom right of the x. Then in the top of the x, we have to multiply these two boxes right here. So 2 times negative 3 is going to be negative 6, and then we'll have our x squared tag along since it's there, and then there's no x or x squared or anything here. So now you got to ask yourself what two numbers, remember, multiply to get to the top and add to get the bottom. And real quick, you may be tempted to say negative 2x and negative 3x, because 2 times 3 does equal 6, and negative 2 plus a negative 3 does equal negative 5. But be careful here, a negative times a negative is a positive, and we want this to be a negative number. We need this to be a negative number. So those will not work. So go ahead, pause the video, try and figure out what multiplies to get negative 6, adds to get negative 5. All right, so we have a negative 6x and a 1x there. Okay, so negative 6 times positive 1 is negative 6, and negative 6 plus positive 1 is negative 5x. So that one was just a little bit tricky. Let's go ahead and put them in here. Remember, order doesn't matter, so if you did flip those, you're okay. So now our goal is to think about what multiplies to get 2x squared. And so typically we've always done x and x, but this time x times x gives us x squared. It doesn't help us get the 2x squared. So notice there was the 1 in front of this, or the invisible number in front of that, but here we do have a number. So which one of these has to be a 2? Because we have to multiply to get a 2 there. And the answer is this one. Because when I'm doing this, and I'm asking myself 2 times what equals negative 6, you can give me an answer to that. If this was a 2x, 2 times what equals 1, you can't do that. So you couldn't have an answer there. So this one is going to be 2 times what equals negative 6, that was that negative 3. And x times what equals x, well, that's just 1. So then my answer for this problem is going to be, I remember writing it as area, as a product, x minus 3, and then times 2x plus 1, since that's a positive 1 there. There we go. All right, so this one, having that 2 in front of the x squared, does make it a little bit more tricky, but the process is identical to what we've been doing. So you don't need to make it any more complicated on yourself, just kind of do the same steps and you'll get it. But that is one of the harder problems. So if you're having a little bit of trouble time with that, that's fine. We'll work with it, and you'll work on that a little bit as you go on through math in high school. All right, so 2 more today. X squared minus 7x here, once again, looks just a little bit different than we're normally used to. So we have to go back to asking ourselves, what looks weird about this one? How is this different? We know what our standard form looks like. It looks like one of these. So how does this look different than something like that? And the answer is that, oh, well, it doesn't have just a number at the end of it, or if we want to get real technical, it doesn't have a c that we need. So, and I say to you, sure it does. Okay. What am I adding to x squared minus 7x? That's just invisible there, right? Plus 0. So we do have a c value in this problem. It's actually just plus 0. So now once we add that in, you can do the problem exactly like you normally would. So we're going to put the 4 pieces of information into our x in our box. So go ahead and pause the video, do that. All right, there we go. Take a look at that. So remember, we put the 0 in for c, and we multiply these two things to get 0x squared. So then to solve the x, what multiplies to get 0 adds to get negative 7. We actually talked about a problem like this in the very first day of the x problems. And that's going to be a 0x and a negative 7x, right? Because 0 times negative 7 gives me 0, and 0 plus a negative 7 gives me negative 7. So we put our 0x and our negative 7x, and then we can complete the steps. So go ahead, see if you can finish this problem, pause the video. All right, so how do we get to make x squared? Well, we need to do x times x, so length times width there. X times what number? It's going to give me negative 7x. Negative 7. And then last but not least, x times what gives me 0x, and that's 0. So then my final answer for this problem is x plus 0, and then x minus 7. There we go. But don't we remember that we wouldn't say, hey, I want to buy 1 plus 0 pizzas. We just say 1 pizza, right? So it doesn't matter, and it doesn't make sense to add 0 to anything. So we're actually going to write this one as x times x minus 7. If you want to put this in parentheses, that's fine, but they are unnecessary. But you can put them if you want. So there's our answer for that one. Notice real quick when we did some greatest common factor stuff and we factored these, we can make our lives way easier by taking out that greatest common factor. So if you look at, right up here, x squared minus 7x, which is what we started with, what's the greatest common factor there? In x, right? So I can take an x out right away and turn this into x minus 7, and that was just our answer. So we can prevent all this work that we just did if we're able to take out a greatest common factor. All right, and this last one, part F, once again, looks a little bit funny. We have, go back here, we have only 2 terms here, so which one are we missing? We're missing the b, right? We're missing the one in the middle, just the one with the plain x. So that means that we can still include it, and we're going to rewrite it. And instead of 3x squared minus 12, we're going to rewrite that as 3x squared plus 0x minus 12. So we still have a b there, and our b is going to be 0 for this problem. So let's do it. I will say right away, if you can, try to take out that greatest common factor. It's always going to make your lives a lot easier. So for this problem, we actually will right away. So we're going to take out a 3 divided by what? 3 divided by 0 divided by what? And 12 divided by what? And the answer there is we can divide all 3 of those things by 3. So this is going to become 3 times x squared. 0 divided by 3 is still just 0. And then 12 divided by 3 is going to be 4. So we have this 3 that we kind of undistributed or pulled out because it's the greatest common factor. So now I can just work with this as my factoring thing I'm supposed to do. And then it's a lot easier because there's no number here. We're still working with that invisible 1 right there. So factoring out definitely makes this easier. So now I'm going to use this to do the x box with. So then up here I'm going to put just that 1x squared since I divided out the 3. Bottom of the x is going to be 0x. And then here we put the negative 4. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can go from here and finish out the problem. When you come back, you'll see the answer. All right, so we do get an answer here of x minus 2 times x plus 2. You'll see that when we multiply these two, we get negative 4x squared. So then my 2 sides that multiply to get this and add to get that would be 2x negative 2x. A reminder, anytime you have a 0 here, these numbers have to be the same, and then 1 positive and 1 negative, right? If you're going to subtract something to get 0, you have to subtract from itself. So then I pull out my x times x, which will give me x squared. And then x times negative 2 gives me negative 2x. X times 2 gives me 2x. And then 2 times negative 2 with my check does equal negative 4, so we're good to go. Although the only thing is we can't forget this 3, right? We know that this part, x squared plus 0x minus 4, is equal to this, but there's still that 3 there. So we just need to take a 3 and tack it on in front. So just like if this whole thing was in parentheses there. So don't forget about that 3 that you factored out. It does make the problem easier. If you did not take that 3 out right away, this is going to look a little bit different, but you'll see, depending on how you did the problem, that now you can take a 3 out if you wanted to. All right, so we have finished factoring. We're going to do a little bit more with it next week, but that is how you factor. So congratulations.